So you may have wondered what this thing I often write on my sheet music actually means. Well, it is the cue number. When you compose the score for a film, you compose it in cues. A cue simply being the piece of music which will accompany a scene or a sequence. It can be really short or the opposite, depending on what's happening on screen.
After the complete film has been viewed for spotting, Ken Wanberg, the supervising music editor, prepares short sequences for John Williams to work on each day. There are nearly 50 music sequences in all.
You always give them a name which basically describes the scene. Some composers actually have a lot of fun doing so. And to know when in the movie this cue is going to play, you also add this information. So what does it mean? Well, it's a convention that goes back to the early days of film scoring. When movies were still shot on film, a composer would receive them on reels, a reel being 10 to 20 minutes long. So a movie could be made of 5, 6, 7, or even 12 reels. And so what happened is that in addition to the cue's name, they would add the number of the reel, that is the first number, and the number of the cue on that reel, so that's the second number. M simply standing for music. So 1M1 is the first cue of the first reel. And very often this will be the main titles, since in a lot of cases that is the very first thing you will hear in a movie. And then the following cues will be called 1M2, 1M3, 1M4, until we reach reel number 2. In which case, we start again with 2M1, the first cue of the second reel, and so on and so forth till we reach the last reel, which contains the end of the movie. So let's take 5M4, for example, that is the fourth cue of the fifth reel. Sometimes you can also find it written that way, like in this John Williams score, Reel 9 Part 1. We could also write this 9M1. And when you see a letter after it, like 1M1A, it means that another cue was added afterwards, so you just add a letter to an existing cue. This way you don't have to change the names of all the already composed following cues. When you listen to the CD release of a soundtrack, in many cases you will hear a combination of several cues, to which the composer will give a new title. So let's take the example of one of my favorite pieces by Williams, that is Escape, Chase, Saying Goodbye from E.T. Well, it is actually made of 3 different cues, that is 11M1, the rescue, 11M3, the bike chase, and 11M4, 12M1, the departure. This information tells us that these cues were all part of the 11th reel and the beginning of the 12th. This movie being 2 hours long, Williams obviously scored it using 10-minute reels, so reel 11 would arrive around 1 hour and 40 minutes of film. Nowadays, as you probably know, we don't use reels anymore. A movie isn't split into many different parts, it is just, well, one big file on a hard drive. That said, this convention of cue naming is actually still used today. Even though it doesn't have physical reels, the movie is still treated as if it was split into several short parts. It just helps to make things more organized and easier to work with, since with a reel number you instantly know in which part of the movie the cue is. One last thing, you might also encounter another way of naming the cues. Well, it's not that different. It also uses the reel concept, but the second number will tell you the actual number of the cue if you were to order them sequentially from the first one till the last. So you would end up with something like this, 6M43, meaning that it's the 43rd cue of the whole score and it's located on the 6th reel. And so there you go. Now you know all about the mystery behind the cue numbering.